Welcome back. We're looking at the role of organizations such as the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE, in promoting Islam in America. Now, recent controversies have targeted the group negatively. Discussing that and the image of Muslims in the USA, we have Pastor Bob Phillips, the senior pastor of the Encourager Church in Houston, Texas, and a vocal critic in a recent incident involving CARE at a local junior high school, and Ibrahim Hooper, the National Communications Director for CARE. And we get back to our discussion. I want to bring in an email as I get you to respond, Mr. Hooper, to the comments of the pastor. This came from Paul in Stockport in the UK, and he says, Americans should be very wary of CARE. It has a hidden agenda to reduce the ability of ordinary non-Muslim citizens to challenge anything that the radical Muslim community does by declaring every complaint against them as lies, racism and Islamophobia. The bottom line is that if CARE was a Christian organization doing the same thing in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Gaza or Sudan, I'm sure death threats would be rife and calls for violent retaliation would be heard from the imams. The first part of that is the response to Pastor.
By the way,
Phillips.
We get death threats almost on a daily basis,
right.
if that's a criteria for anything. But look, when you're a civil rights group, you're going to be involved in controversy constantly. When you're as effective as we have been in defending the rights of American Muslims, and by the way, people of all faiths in America, you're going to get attacked. You're going to get the internet talking points against you. I would say judge us by our 14-year history of defending people's rights, putting forward a moderate mainstream viewpoint on all issues. Whenever these people bring out these talking points, it's from nothing that CARE's ever done. They pull it from what your great Aunt Tilly said in 1902 or something like this. Bring something from what CARE did, what CARE said, we can talk about it.
How do you deal with that, though? Because so many issues do come up. You know,
that's life in the big city. You know, when you're doing this kind of work, you're going to get attacked. We just take it as part of the game.
Well, Pastor Bob Phillips, I mean, you'd mentioned before the break your concerns about CARE. Who would you have had go into the school and do this kind of education process to at least help students understand Islam and some of the negative stereotypes of Muslims a little bit better?
Well, you know, I don't have a specific group or person that I would say should come in. I think it should be groups that are not so highly controversial as CARE. I do believe that CARE defends the rights of Muslims. I mean, that's part of what we believe in a free country of America.
By the way, I should tell the Reverend that we've defended Christian rights. We had a Christian bus driver, I believe it was in Philadelphia some time ago, who wanted to wear a head covering based on her interpretation of Christianity. We defended her rights. When the state of Ohio wanted to put "In God We Trust" in their motto, we defended that. When there was a cartoon on television attacking Jesus or giving a negative portrayal of God, we go after that with the same vigor that we defend Muslim rights. So we're going to defend everyone's rights.
Well, let the pastor finish his point. You were saying, sir.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. I'd like to comment on that as well. I think in any discussion between a dialogue with Muslims and Christians, that one of the major issues has to be reciprocity. Now, Mr. Hooper says that they defend Christian rights, but you'll find nothing in Christians' website, find nothing in their information defending the rights of Christians in majority Muslim countries. It's just not there. So it's a little bit disingenuous again.
Well,
to say
then the Reverend needs to look at our site where we condemned the anti-Semitic Holocaust denial conference in Iran. We've condemned anti-Semitic literature in an Arab American newspaper, I believe in New Jersey. We've done these kinds of things, but often they're conveniently ignored.
Okay.
Well, again, we're talking about what you did in New Jersey and some other places. But where is it that there's a right of Christians? For example, in Muslim countries, there is just undeniably so that Christians live a very hard life, and quite frankly,
that is deniable.
They do
you
not
go to
have,
Malaysia, you go to Turkey, you go to Syria, you go to many 10% of Egypt is Christian.
Mr. Hooper, just let Pastor Phillips finish his point here, and then go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to complete my statements. The truth of the matter is that you just cannot defend the fact that there is Christian freedom in majority Muslim countries. And it's just not defendable. I mean, we can talk about it and we can quote little incidences that CARE may have done and so on, but it's just not defendable. There is not reciprocity in Muslim countries for Christians. In fact, the Christians right now rank by several global watch groups as the most persecuted religion in the world. And the majority of that persecution is in predominantly Muslim countries, and that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
I think if we have some dialogue, I think that's great. I do not at all condone the misrepresentation nor the persecution of Muslims in America. That is, first of all, it's against our belief as Christians, and secondly, it's against our laws and beliefs of the majority of Americans. And there is fear. There's no question about that. And with fear comes misunderstanding. And with misunderstanding comes criticism. So there's no question that there are some of those elements that exist here. And I think they should be corrected. But again, the dialogue has to begin somewhere between Muslim groups, the freedoms that Christians could have in Islamic countries.
Well, it's interesting that he brings up this point. I was just at a conference on dialogue in Mecca. Very important conference. Hundreds of Muslim leaders from around the world came to promote dialogue between Muslims, Christians, and Jews. There's an upcoming conference on dialogue that I hope to attend in Spain in July. So things are moving forward. Muslims are reaching out, and we hope there are Christians, Jews, and people of other faiths who are reaching back.
Now, we're going to get John on the line from Canada quickly with a question because John's been waiting. Go ahead, John.
Hello.
Hi, go on.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry, I want to make a comment to the gentleman who represents the Organization of Muslims in the USA.
Yeah.
I think he is wrong in one thing when he says that he gave us an example that in Egypt the Christians are very well treated. I am from Egypt, I am Christian, and I can really argue that in the ID card in Egypt we are still, 300 years behind. You have your ID card, and on your ID card it's written Muslim or Jew or Christian.
Now,
So
John, let me put that
And by the way, just to correct the record, I didn't say the situation of Christians in Egypt was perfect. I said 10% of the population is Christian.
Now, of course, if you look at it, make the comparison, and we've really sort of gone from the debate in America, but if we're looking at America compared with the majority of the Muslim world, by and large, America stands pretty well in terms of its freedoms.
I often say that as an American Muslim, I'm freer to practice my faith here than in many parts of the Muslim world. There are places in the Muslim world where a woman cannot go to university wearing a headscarf. Here, the Justice Department would intervene on her behalf to make sure she could go to university.
What can be done, Mr. Hooper, regarding the mainstream voice coming out and countering some of the negative, the radical Muslims who...
I think what we have to do is the mainstream moderate practitioners of all faiths need to get together and marginalize true extremists. But when people label the faith of Islam itself as extreme, that ends the dialogue right there.
Pastor Phillips, that is one of the issues that's been discussed, and we've done it quite a few times on this show in our debates, that the trouble is there's a brush that is painting the whole of the religion very negatively. And what would you suggest in terms of moving forward to actually identify the fact there are moderate, peaceful Muslims, the majority, of course, who basically see a big problem with the way America has taken, or the majority of non-Muslim America has taken Islam as a religion?
Well, there are groups that certainly do that, and again, I say that a lot of that is due to fear. I don't think that all Muslims are people that we fear, and I think most Americans don't walk down the street and see someone dressed as a Muslim or proclaiming to be a Muslim or has a neighbor as a Muslim. I have a neighbor that's not directly beside me, but right on the same block that I live, who is Muslim. I have no conflicts with him. We have occasionally discussed a few differences and points of view, but I have no conflicts with him. So I know that it exists. I think dialogue is important. But again, and I know you mentioned you want to stay on this, what happened in Texas, but I do think it's very, very relevant because some of the fears come from the fact that all of the reports are very, very clear. As the man Christian from Egypt said, Christians have been in flight in Muslim countries because of fear of their life. You just cannot say that a Christian can go over and start a Christian church have full access to the media and part of the political process in a predominantly Muslim land.
Okay.
Now, I think, now let me just say this part. I think this will help the dialogue. It will help the dialogue if we, in fact, have some groups like CARE making demands on Islamic countries that they make demands here. If you're going to make demands as a minority in a country that gives a lot of freedoms, then I think you're required to make demands upon those in the majority of the same faith that are, in fact, not listening. Well, I appreciate the conferences and dialogue.
Gentlemen, unfortunately, we're going to have to pick up this debate on another occasion because we've run out of time, but I thank you very much for joining us, Pastor Phillips and Ibrahim Hooper. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. On the next show, we discuss the Turkish military's attempts to overthrow the government in a judicial coup. Is Turkey's future secular or Islamic? Let us know your thoughts. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.